Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. In a final push for votes, Trump promises celebration post the results at his last rally in Georgia. In Michigan, Harris pledges to end the war in Gaza. Indian High Commission in Canada condemns violent disruption at Brampton Hindu Temple. At least 35 killed as a bus falls into a gorge in North India's Uttarakhand. Prime Minister announces 2 lakh rupees ex gratia for those deceased in the mishap. Israeli Prime Minister visits Lebanon border, vows to respond firmly to Hezbollah. Iranians rally in Tehran, protesting against the US hegemony. So up first, let's get you all the latest on the US presidential polls as the race for the White House nears the finish line. American voters will face a clear choice for president on election day between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump. In a final push for votes, Trump focused on immigration at his last rally in Georgia on Sunday. Harris, meanwhile, was in Michigan making a pitch to Christians and Arab Americans. The big question is, will America get its first woman president or a second Donald Trump term?
The US presidential election is all set for an epic showdown. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris ramp up their campaigns in critical swing states. With less than 36 hours until polls open on Tuesday, both candidates are in an all-out push to sway the final undecided voters. In recent rallies, Trump has zeroed in on the economy and job reports, betting that these issues will resonate and lead him to victory over Harris. Rallying in Georgia, the Republican candidate promised a fun time ahead.
It's going to be party time. It's going to be party time. So with your vote on Tuesday, we're going to fire Kamala and we are going to save America. We will cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices, raise your wages, and bring thousands of factories back to America and back to the good old state of Georgia.
Meanwhile, Democrat Kamala Harris made her closing pitch in Michigan, where she committed to working towards an end to the conflict in Gaza. She also warned voters not to be swayed by Trump's tactics surrounding election fraud claims.
I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic, which I think includes suggesting to people that if they vote, their vote won't matter. Suggesting to people that somehow the integrity of our voting system is not intact so that they don't vote. And again, I think that it is a tactic. It is meant to distract from the fact that we have and support free and fair elections in our country.
Across the swing states, the competition between Republicans and Democrats remains razor thin. In Iowa, a new poll shows Harris pulling ahead of Trump, but another survey suggests that Republican nominee still holds favor in many other key battlegrounds. Supporters are deeply divided as both campaigns continue their final push.
What he stands for, his platform, standing for religious liberty, for life, for morality. Where I see the other side, he's more pro-America, definitely, and he sees the threat that our country's facing, and he wants to stop that and return America back to where our foundation has been laid.
We're just excited to go out and vote. We're excited to be a part of getting the first woman in office in the White House.
As election day nears, security measures around the White House are being bolstered. With concerns of potential unrest, law enforcement across the capital and several states are on a high alert. This year's presidential race is coming down to the wire, with an unprecedented number of swing states too close to call. Over 77.6 million people have already cast their votes early, roughly half the total ballots in 2020, underscoring the intense public interest in this election. Tripti Tripathi reporting for DD India.
The US presidential elections operate differently from India's popular vote system. In the US, voters actually choose an electoral college which ultimately selects the president and the vice president. So here's how it works. The US president is elected by 538 electors from across the nation. This number represents the combined total of members in the Senate, the House of Representatives, plus 3 electors from Washington, D.C. It's a winners-take-all system in most states. Whoever wins the popular vote in each state claims all the state's electoral votes, with the exception of Nebraska and Maine. Each state's electoral votes are based on population, but winning the presidency requires 270 of these 538 votes. Voters in each state select electors from party nominees, with swing states holding particular importance. These are the states where the outcome is uncertain and could sway either way. Notably, each state is guaranteed at least 3 electoral votes, so states with small populations like Wyoming end up overrepresented, while highly populated states like California are somewhat underrepresented. And now we are joined by our correspondents from the US. We have Amritpal Singh connected with us from Florida and Shubhendu Ghosh from Washington, D.C. I'll come to you, Amrit, first. Well, both candidates we see are campaigning in the swing states, as it is the last day of campaigning in the country. The national survey points that they are very closely tied with a marginal difference over each other. So in a way, the swing states hold the key for the White House?
That's right. The swing states have always held the key to the White House because though their composition in the Electoral College may be small, but they decide who the next president would be because the election goes the way they go. And the latest New York Times Siena College survey points exactly to that. The difference is really marginal. If you look at Pennsylvania, the biggest swing state, both are tied at 48 percentage points. If you look at if you look at Nevada, for example, Nevada, Trump holds about 46 percentage points, whereas Harris is leading by 3 percentage points here. With a margin error, as I said, things could go either way. Again, in North Carolina, the difference is just about 2 percentage points. 46 to 48, 46 for Trump, 46 for Harris. Again, Wisconsin, 47-49, 47 for Trump, 49 for Kamala. Again, Georgia is very closely tied, 47 for Trump, 48, just 1 percentage point difference. Michigan, again tied, 47 percentage points each. Arizona looks a little clear for Donald Trump. According to the poll survey, it says 45 for Harris and 49 for Trump. So nationally, she leads by a margin of 1.4 percentage points, and that is really no margin given the error margin. So that is why you see both sides trying to put all their energies on the last day of campaigning in the swing states. He was in Pennsylvania, she was in Wisconsin, he ended up in Georgia, North Carolina, her running mate again in North Carolina and Georgia, trying to woo the voter. She's saying that don't fall in for the election fraud rhetoric of Donald Trump, clearly sending a message to her voter base and the undecided voters that come out and vote, because whoever gets the voter out really wins this race.
Clearly a very historically close contest it will be. Thank you, Amritpal Singh. Shubhendu Ghosh is also with us. Shubhendu, what is the mood and situation in Washington just before the elections? And would you also take us through the election process on November 5th?
Well, here in the national capital, the seat of power, Washington, D.C., the tension is palpable in the air. With the election day just round the corner, the security has been heightened for many days now. There was also an incident of a ballot box burning a few weeks ago. All arrangements are being made that any untoward incidents does not happen. There's an elaborate security arrangement at the polling stations as well, besides the candidates. There's use of drones, bulletproof glasses and other such means. If we talk about the voting process on November 5th, it is going to be a voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But we also have to take into account the different time zones in the United States. For example, there's a time difference of about 3 hours between Washington, D.C. and California. So this 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will have to account for that as well. Most of the voting happens on hard copy ballot paper by the voters. There is also about 25% of voting that happens through electronic voting. We have to also remember that during the early voting that has happened here in America, this time over, the numbers are quite historic. In most of the places, especially the swing states which are in focus in the elections, more than 50% of the voters have already exercised their franchise. The rest of them are expected to vote on November 5th, the election day. Once the voting gets over by about 7 p.m. in the evening, the trends will start coming. If the contest continues to be as close as the opinion polls have predicted, it might take many days to determine who the next leader, who the next president of the US is going to be. However, if any leader has a clear edge, then it is possible that within 24 hours of the elections concluding, we might know who the next leader of the United States is going to be.
Thank you very much, Shubhendu Ghosh, reporting from Washington, D.C. So, US has seen an increasing vitriolic election campaign last few months. So, what does that vitriolic campaigning season say about the racial dynamics in American politics? How far has the nation come since the civil rights movement of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh earlier engaged with various stakeholders to find out more.
We are traveling through the US to cover the presidential elections. We are here in Atlanta. America today presents itself as a beacon of hope, as the greatest democracy in the world. But it was not always the land of equality and freedom. Till 1960s and 70s, racial segregation was a reality. And then came Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and he said, I have a dream.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
The dream of equality and freedom from the scourge of racial violence and discrimination. Dr. King led a non-violent movement in the late 1950s and 60s to achieve legal equality for African Americans in the United States.
In the 12 years or so that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led the American civil rights movement, they say that the African Americans made more progress than they did in the past 3 centuries. But now it's 2024 and time for US presidential elections. We want to understand what is the place for racism in US politics today.
We visit some early voting centers in Atlanta to talk to voters.
As a black woman within America, I feel that it is my right to do my vote. As we all know, we are living in a country that was built on us, but not for us.
Race is not a major issue here, although at least one of the parties likes to make it one because their support is bigger in that base.
The United States of 2024 is far more racially diverse nation than America of the 1950s. But the vitriolic campaigning shows diversity and discrimination can exist at the same time.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Still today, we see big disparities. African Americans, Asian Americans, and Latino Americans vote at lower rates and have lower socioeconomic advancement than the white population.
Should I deny it completely? No, I'm not. I'm being realistic. That there is there, but we made significant progress, especially in USA. We made significant progress. Imagine having an African American president for not once, 2 terms. And now another lady is running for the highest office in this country.
The presidential campaign this year has been one of the most polarized ones. It remains to be seen if the outcome will heal the divisions or open old wounds. Shubhendu Ghosh's report for DD India, Atlanta.
You're with us on DD India News Hour. Still to come on the show. US's B-1B bomber joins air drill with South Korea and Japan in response to Pyongyang's latest ICBM launch. Maya Sandu claims victory in a closely fought Moldovan presidential election. And India's Hardeep Singh Puri discusses energy's vital role in economic transformation at the ADIPEC 2024 conference in Abu Dhabi.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Updates from West Asia conflict now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his commitment to pushing Hezbollah beyond the Litani River during his visit to the Lebanon border. Netanyahu's visit to the Lebanese border included an assessment with the commanders regarding the operational picture and defensive and offensive plans for the continuity of activity. Here, the Israeli Prime Minister also met with the reserve commanders, the Northern Nahal Brigade, and spoke with them about their combat till date.
With or without an agreement, the key to returning peace and security in the north, the key to returning our evacuated residents in the north safely to their homes is to push Hezbollah back beyond the Litani River, to strike any attempt by it to rearm, and thirdly, to respond forcefully against any action against us.
A barrage of missiles at an Israeli military base in the northern coastal city of Haifa. Israel's military confirmed that over 100 projectiles were fired from Lebanon into Israeli territory on Sunday. Several were intercepted and some fell in unpopulated areas. Israeli troops recently detained an individual in Syria, which the IDF said was an Iranian operative who had gathered intelligence on Israeli troops in the border area. The Israeli military named the person as Ali Soleiman al-Asi, a Syrian citizen from the area of Saida in southern Syria. It said the operation took place in recent months. However, no exact date was given. Taking to social media platform X, the IDF said that the operation prevented a future attack and led to the exposure of the operational methods of Iranian terror networks located near the Golan Heights. Al-Asi has been brought to Israel for further investigation. Meanwhile, Iranians staged a mass rally on Sunday at the premises of the former US Embassy, chanting slogans against the US military deployment in West Asia and US's hegemony. The protesters also said that with the support and connivance of the United States of America, Israel continues to provoke other countries, causing regional tensions to escalate. They said that Iran will resolutely safeguard its national interests and not be afraid of any threats. Meanwhile, a former spokesperson of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been detained by the country's government. The man, identified as Eliezer Feldstein, has been detained for allegedly leaking confidential documents that may have harmed Gaza hostage deal negotiations, as per a court. Eliezer Feldstein was detained along with 3 other people, including security officials, said the court in the coastal city of Rishon LeZion. News of the case has led to the opposition to question whether Netanyahu was complicit in the leak, an allegation denied by his office. Further, Israel has officially notified the UN of its decision to cancel the agreement with UNRWA, the country's foreign ministry said on Monday. Last month, the Israeli parliament passed legislation banning UNRWA from operating in Israel and stopping Israeli authorities from cooperating with the organization, which provides aid and education services to millions of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank region and Gaza. Israel has long been critical of UNRWA, set up in the wake of the 1948 war that broke out at the time of the creation of the State of Israel, accusing it of anti-Israel bias and saying that it perpetuates the conflict by maintaining Palestinians in a permanent refugee status. Since the start of the Israel-Hamas conflict in October last year, it has also said that the organization has been deeply infiltrated by Hamas in Gaza, accusing some of its staff of taking part in the October 7th attack on Israel. Next, on to tensions in the Korean Peninsula. The United Nations Security Council is set to convene an emergency meeting on Monday to address North Korea's recent intercontinental ballistic missile test, which Pyongyang claimed was successful. This move has sparked widespread concern, with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres strongly condemning the action as a clear breach of Security Council resolutions. North Korea has been under UN sanctions since 2006, with measures steadily intensifying to curb the nation's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. In response to North Korea's latest long-range missile test, South Korea, Japan and the United States on Sunday conducted a joint air drill involving a heavy bomber. The drill mobilized the US's B-1B bomber, South Korea's F-15K and KF-16 fighter jets and Japan's F-2 jets. The B-1B lander is a supersonic heavy bomber known for its high-speed performance with a payload of 34,000 kilograms of munitions, including both conventional and precision-guided weapons. The exercise took place 3 days after Pyongyang launched one of its most powerful and advanced solid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missile, which experts say could reach the targets in the mainland US. North Korea is also in the news for its reported involvement with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is being condemned by the West as well as the United States. In this series, European Union's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell will hold talks today with his South Korean counterpart Cho Tae-yul, which he strongly This deployment was strongly condemned by him last week as well, ahead of which Borrell mentioned that he will discuss ways to advance the EU's security and defense cooperation with South Korea. He will also co-chair the first strategic dialogue with the foreign minister. During his visit, Borrell will also hold talks with defense minister and visit the joint security area and the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas. Now, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues to intensify. Ukrainian forces shot down 50 out of 80 Russian drones in an overnight attack. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 27 drones were locationally lost in various regions due to the impact of the electronic warfare. Shifting to Moldova, where pro-Western incumbent President Maia Sandu has won a second term in a pivotal presidential runoff against a Russian-friendly opponent. According to the Central Electoral Commission, Sandu has 55% of the vote, with almost 99% of the votes counted in the second round. Her competitor, the former Prosecutor General Alexander Stoyanoglu, was polling at just over 45%. On Sunday, Moldovans voted in a runoff election, which was seen as a critical indicator of whether the country's long-term geopolitical alignment would be with Russia or with Europe. Speaking at the headquarters of her Action and Solidarity Party in the capital, Chisinau, Sandu said her priority in the coming years would be to be a president for all Moldovans.
Moldova, you have stepped into the future. Dear Moldovans, I am grateful to each of you who came to vote. I have heard your voice, both those who supported me and those who voted for Mr. Stoyanoglu. I commit to being the president for all of you.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has congratulated Sandu on her re-election. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, Maya Sandu has guided the Republic of Moldova safely through difficult times and set her country on a European course. We stand by Moldova's side in this. Congratulations on your re-election as president, unquote. Early on Monday, Spanish authorities continued the challenging cleanup effort in Valencia after devastating flash floods claimed at least 217 lives, marking one of the most severe flooding in Spain's recent history. In the Spanish city of Torrent, workers used heavy machinery to remove layers of mud and debris left by the floodwaters that inundated streets and ground floors. The tragedy is Europe's worst flood-related disaster since 1967, when at least 500 people died in Portugal. On to UAE now. India's Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, inaugurated the India Pavilion at the ADIPEC 2024, marking India's significant presence at one of the world's premier energy exhibitions. The minister also participated in the Global Leaders and Energy Transition Ministerial Panel, engaging with international energy leaders on sustainability goals. In his address, the minister outlined India's ambitious plans for energy transition, including the target of achieving 20% biofuel blending by the next year and accelerating green hydrogen production. He emphasized India's success in making energy more affordable.
We are using today artificial intelligence for refinery automation. We are using artificial intelligence for 2D and 3D seismic surveys. We are for finding oil and gas. We are using low-cost solar energy in a way to boost our power and our data centers. Today, India is one country where the price of energy has actually come down in the last 2 or 3 years. Because today we have to frontally address the trilemma of availability, affordability and sustainability.
ADIPEC 2024 runs through November 7th, features 30 country pavilions and over 2,200 companies, including representations from national and international energy companies. Moving on, India remains the top source market to Sri Lanka with 36,417 tourist arrivals in October this year. Indian tourists represent 27% share out of the total of 135,000 for the month. The total Indian tourists that have travelled to Sri Lanka this year has reached 323,000, which is well above the 303,000 tourist arrivals from India last year. Statistics from the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority show that in the year so far, over 1.6 million tourists arrived in the island nation. The number is more than the total arrival of 1.48 million recorded last year. With healthy numbers clocked this year so far, India, a projection of 2.9 million tourist arrivals for 2025 is being made. Connectivity with India has improved with daily flights to Jaffna as well as the ferry service from Nagapattinam complement flights from several important Indian cities. Still to come on DD India News. National Conference's Abdul Rahim Rather elected as Speaker of the J&K Assembly. On his Australia visit, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar opens new Indian consulate in Brisbane. And New Delhi hosts the 7th session of the International Solar Alliance. President of the ISA Assembly, Prahlad Joshi, says global solar capacity expected to reach 2.4 terawatt in 2024. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of the headlines we are tracking at this hour. In a final push for votes, Trump promises celebration post the results at his last rally in Georgia. In Michigan, Harris pledges to end the war in Gaza. Indian High Commission in Canada condemns the violent disruption at the Brampton Hindu temple. At least 35 killed as a bus falls into a gorge in North India's Uttarakhand. Prime Minister announces 2 lakh rupees ex gratia for those deceased in the mishap. Israeli Prime Minister visits Lebanon border, vows to respond firmly to Hezbollah. Iranians rally in Tehran, protesting against the hegemony of the USA in the conflict. India reacted strongly to a violent disruption outside Consular camp in Brampton, Ontario. The Indian mission in Canada said it is deeply disappointing that such disruptions are being allowed for routine consular work. The High Commission said that any further events will be organized contingent on security arrangements made by the local authorities. The statement also highlighted other incidents of disruption during consular camps held in Vancouver and Surrey on November 2nd and 3rd. The visit of Indian consular officials to the Hindu Sabha temple in Brampton was met with violence by anti-India elements near Toronto on Sunday. Anti-India elements had been protesting the presence of Indian consulate officials undertaking an announced visit to provide administrative services such as helping seniors access pensions. Many leaders in Canada have come forward to condemn the violence. Condemning the attacks, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau emphasized on the importance of religious freedom, while Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre called the attack as unacceptable. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown said that he was disappointed to hear about the acts of violence outside the temple. Toronto MP Kevin Vuong also condemned the attack and asserted that Canada has become a safe harbour for radicals, and asserted that the country's leaders have failed to protect Hindus just like they failed to safeguard Christians and Jewish Canadians. Canadian Member of Parliament Chandra Arya also condemned the attack on the temple, saying that a red line had been crossed by Khalistani extremists, highlighting the rise of brazen, violent extremism in Canada. Local police said that they had deployed heavily troops outside the Hindu Sabha Mandir in order to maintain calm during this protest, though no arrests have been made so far. Police have also declined to assign blame for the reported violence. The recent attack adds to a string of similar incidents documented in recent years, underscoring a distressing trend of religious intolerance in the country. During the last few years, Hindu temples in Greater Toronto area, British Columbia and other places in Canada are being vandalized with hateful graffiti. Meghna Dev joins us with more on the story now. Meghna, why is it that Canadian authorities are repeatedly failing to ensure proper security arrangements and thus allowing violence by anti-India elements, as has happened now at Brampton?
Yes, absolutely. It is very disappointing to see such kind of violence at the Hindu Sabha temple. Now, this is not a unique exercise that happens. Consular exercises generally take place, such camps generally take place. Now, this was for distributing the life certificates, which is a vital document for pensions and for other documentation that is required by the Indian diaspora. Now, this was the consular camp that was organized there, and after that, when we see that such violent, or we can say such violence has occurred at the Hindu Sabha temple, at a consular camp. Now, when these consular camps are organized, Tanvi, we generally see that already in prior security clearances are taken, and it is well understood by the Canadian authorities or the police department or whoever is in charge of the security to ensure that there is, this whole exercise, the consular camp goes on smoothly. Now, this is not just, violence, but it is also very important aspect to see that how the, how the Canadian authorities have failed to provide security to the Indian nationals who were there at the camp, the diaspora, the people of the diaspora who were at the camp, and have not been able to actually provide security not only to the nationals but also to the officers who were working at the consular camp. So this is very disappointing. And as we saw the video of a member of parliament from Canada,
Yes.
Chandra, he has also tweeted, he said this is the red line that has been crossed. Not only this, he has also posted on X that I begin to feel that there is a small grain of truth in the reports that in addition to Canadian political apparatus, Khalistanis have effectively infiltrated into our law enforcement agencies.
Yeah,
and
also it is very curious and disturbing, Meghna, that the police at Brampton have made no arrests and have also declined to assign blame for the reported violence. So how do we explain this?
So now when we actually see that after the, we can say a probably diplomatic showdown between India and Canada, we have been seeing that the relationship has seen a very, very, or maybe we can say the lowest of the lows. And what we also definitely see is that time and again, not only when we are talking about, Canadian authorities threatening our diplomats, death threats being given to our diplomats, we had to call back our High Commissioner to Canada. Time and again, Canada has been trying to malign India's image or smearing India's image for political gain. So this has been very, very evident. And this incident, so now when we see it's not only just in Brampton, such kind of camps are organized in, we can say Vancouver or Surrey for that matter. But such incidences to occur definitely paints a very important, disappointing picture that our Indian nationals or the people of the diaspora, number of students, Indian students that study in Canada, number of Indian nationals that are living in Canada, earning a life for themselves there, are they actually safe? Because if the people working at the consulate, people working at the CGI, the consulate in India in Canada, are they if they are not safe, what about the Indian nationals?
Absolutely.
So it is complete, not only this, it is a complete violation also of the diplomatic conventions that are there when a country is not able to provide any kind of security for the consulate officials. And also a very important thing to probe that how such kind of violence can occur at consular camps, which is a general norm.
Another low in Indo-Canada ties, certainly. Thank you very much, Meghna Dev, for those updates. National Conference leader and 7-time MLA Abdul Rahim Rather was unanimously elected as the new Speaker of the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly on Monday. The motion for his election was moved by the Minister for Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Javed Ahmed Dar, and seconded by NC MLA Arjun Singh Raju. With the opposition parties opting not to contest, Pro Tem Speaker Mubarak Gul officially announced Rather's election. Following the announcement, Leader of the House Omar Abdullah and Leader of Opposition Sunil Sharma escorted Rather to the Speaker's chair. The Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Manoj Sinha, addressed the newly elected legislators in the Legislative Assembly on Monday. He emphasized the government's commitment to fulfilling the aspirations of the people in the Union Territory of J&K. The LG highlighted that the desire to return to statehood remains strong, noting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his commitment to restoring it on several occasions. This commitment has rekindled hope and provided assurances to people.
My government will make all efforts for restoration of full statehood and constitutional guarantees available to the state. It would be befitting the reciprocation of the faith reposed by the people of Jammu and Kashmir in our democratic institutions. In the meantime, I urge all stakeholders to work together as one team and extend full support to my government in fulfilling the hopes and aspirations of the people.
In Jammu and Kashmir's capital Srinagar, security has been tightened after at least 12 people were injured in a grenade attack on Sunday. The blast that occurred at the Sunday market near the tourist reception centre in Srinagar caused panic in the area. Police has taken cognizance of this act of terror and is committed to ensuring that the perpetrators are brought to justice. The grenade attack comes a day after a top Pakistani terrorist affiliated to Lashkar-e-Taiba was gunned down by security forces in Srinagar. DD India's Shabir Dar joins us from Jammu and Kashmir now. Shabir, tell us the full significance of the first ever assembly session of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is happening today.
Yeah, the first day, it was the first day of the assembly. This is the assembly, which we got after the election which were held recently. it is the first legislative assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, because we know that the elections, the people have hugely participated, and there are huge, aspirations of people with this. So with this background, the first day of the assembly saw the election of the speaker of the legislative assembly. The senior national conference leader Abdurrahman was unanimously elected as the first speaker of the legislative assembly of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. With this the formal business of the house got started, and we saw the one MLA from the PDP try to bring in a resolution against the the changes that were brought in August 2019. But both the opposition benches and the government did prevail on them that this is not the right time to actually start this session with such controversial issues. Umar Abdullah did intervene and said that no doubt the the majority of the people in the assembly are not in favor of the changes, but this is not the time to bring politics when people's issues are supreme, and people have high hopes with this government that their issues will be taken, the day-to-day issues of people including about the water, health, and other job-oriented issues. So definitely a significant day, a significant session for people to see that issues resolved. And this was amply highlighted by the Lieutenant Governor in his address to the Legislative Assembly, saying that the government is committed in fulfilling the aspirations and hopes of people. He said that his government will see that people's issues remain supreme, and their resolution
is also supreme. Yes. So, Shabir Dar, would you agree that the recent terror attacks in the region only reflect the growing desperation of the terrorists?
Absolutely, because Kashmir has seen peace and normalcy for a long time, and the recent elections and the formation of a popular government in Jammu and Kashmir definitely has unfettered these terror organizations, and they try their part to vitiate the atmosphere in Jammu and Kashmir. That is why we have seen the spurt in terror activities in Kashmir and in Jammu regions from past 2 to 3 months. And yesterday's gunnet attack in the city, in the heart of the city, when on Sunday, the bustling Sunday market, reflects that the desperation of those people who want to disturb the peace and in Jammu and Kashmir, who don't want to see that the people of Kashmir have given a befitting reply to all those people who want to keep Kashmir boiling, who want to keep Kashmir in this turmoil.
But for now, Jammu and Kashmir is writing another new chapter, holding its first day of the assembly session. Thank you very much, Shabir Dar, joining us from Srinagar. Now, some sad news coming from India's Uttarakhand. A major road accident occurred on Monday in Almora district of India's Uttarakhand, where a passenger bus fell into 200 feet deep gorge. Officials say there were at least 40 passengers aboard when it went out of control, and out of which at least 35 were killed. The seriously injured people have been airlifted to AIIMS Rishikesh and Sushila Tiwari Hospital Haldwani for better treatment. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami announced that his government will provide assistance of 4 lakh rupees each to the families of the deceased and 1 lakh each for the injured. Along with this, Dhami directed the Commissioner of Kumaon Division of Uttarakhand to conduct a magisterial inquiry into the incident.
सभी घायलों को तत्काल स्वास्थ्य सुविधाएं मिलें, उपचार मिले, उसके लिए सभी एम्बुलेंस इत्यादि की व्यवस्था तत्काल वहां पर की जा रही है। सभी को भेजा गया है, सभी अफसरों को मौके पर जाने के निर्देश दिए हैं और इस पूरी घटना के लिए कुमाऊं कमिश्नर को मजिस्ट्रियल जांच के आदेश दिए हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also condoled the loss of lives in the Almora bus accident. In a tweet, he said, and I quote him, "My condolences to those who lost their loved ones in the road accident in Almora, Uttarakhand. I also wish for the speedy recovery of all those injured. Under the supervision of the state government, the local administration is making every possible effort for their relief and rescue." The Prime Minister has announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund for the next of kin of each deceased in the mishap in Almora. The injured would be given 50,000 rupees as was announced by the Office of the Prime Minister. And at the 7th session of the International Solar Alliance Assembly in New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam, India was elected president and France the co-president of the International Solar Alliance. Together, they will lead over 120 countries in advancing solar adoption globally.
The 7th session of the International Solar Alliance kick-started on Monday, uniting over 120 countries and global partners at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. India's Minister of New and Renewable Energy Prahlad Joshi and President of ISA Assembly opened the session with powerful words, reaffirming the ISA's evolution under Prime Minister Modi's leadership into a vital platform for global solar cooperation.
India is also swiftly advancing its renewable energy capabilities. India's journey is one of the bold vision and the relentless progress. Under India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's leadership, India has set ambitious renewable energy targets and achieved the remarkable milestone along the way. Last month, India reached an impressive 90 gigawatt of installed solar capacity, moving steadily forward towards its broader goal of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030.
With 120 members and signatory countries on board, the International Solar Alliance is now a driving force in the global transition to clean energy. In this inaugural session, dignitaries and delegates from every corner of the world come together with a shared vision to improve energy access, boost energy security, and fast-track the clean energy transition. The goal to harness the sun's limitless energy for sustainable development across the regions with limited access to reliable power. Solar energy is poised to be a game changer in the battle against climate change. And now, under the leadership of India and co-presidency of France, the ISA Assembly will explore pathways to rapidly expand solar energy adoption. Over the next 3 days, discussion will focus on strategies to accelerate solar deployment, particularly in regions with limited energy access. Together, the world's leaders will chart a course towards a cleaner, brighter and more sustainable future for all. International Solar Alliance illuminating the path to a global solar revolution. With Kawabasa Yogesh, this is Apush Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
On to some business news now. Indian benchmark equity indices, Sensex and the Nifty traded deep in the red on Monday, impacted by the decline in banking, financial and IT stocks. Nifty dropped 441 points, while Sensex plunged 1,316 points. Major sectoral indices, including Nifty Oil, Gas, Media, Consumer Durables and Realty, declined between 2 to 3%, while Nifty Bank, Auto, FMCG, Metal and PSU Bank saw losses over 1%. Global markets are under pressure as the US prepares for a heated presidential election on Tuesday. Adding to market jitters, the US Federal Reserve's policy meeting on November 6th and 7th follows October's near-stalled job growth. So the US Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut interest rates again this week, while votes are being counted in one of the closest fought presidential election races in decades. The Fed's two-day rate meeting begins on Wednesday and is expected to result in a quarter percentage point rate cut following the following day. The United States has remained a bright spot in the global economy this year, with inflation falling towards the Fed's 2% mark, while growth has remained robust and the labor market has remained surprisingly resilient despite recent signs of cooling. And the striking workers at Boeing will vote on Monday on the aerospace giant's latest contract proposal to end a bruising walkout that has dragged on for more than 7 weeks. The vote by about 33,000 machinists in the Pacific Northwest is expected to pave the way for production to resume at the two Seattle area factories that build the 737 MAX and 777 aircraft after workers voted down two previous offers. Chief Executive Kelly Ortberg has implored strikers to ratify the deal. Boeing's latest proposal for its workers includes a 38% wage hike over the 4 years of the contract, up from a 35% hike in the prior proposal and closer to the 40% initially sought by the union. And you're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for all the sporting updates. And to give us all the sporting updates, we have with us Deepika Mehta.
Thanks and good afternoon, Tanvi. First, let's tell our viewers about what's happening in the race up to the WTC points table. So with 18 tests remaining in the 2023-25 cycle, 5 teams are still in with a chance of making it to Lord's and playing for the right to be crowned as the World Test Championship matches. Rohit Sharma led Team India, who had a disappointing test series against New Zealand, slipped to second place in the race. The series loss made it tough for them to qualify for the World Test Championship final, but they have still destiny in their own hands. Our next report gets you more. Take a look.
India's hopes for a third consecutive World Test Championship final took a massive hit when it got whitewashed at the hands of New Zealand in their own den. The historic 3-0 cleanup by Kiwis has made it much tougher for India to reach a third straight WTC final, but they still have the fate in their own hands. But for that, they need to win 4 tests in Australia to guarantee a place in the showpiece game next summer and the mecca of cricket, Lord's. Any other scenario will see them depending on other teams' result. Before the test series against New Zealand, India dominated the top spot of the WTC 2023-2025 points table. However, things turned around after Kiwis defeated Rohit Sharma's side in 3-match test series. As a result of the loss, India lost their top spot in the World Test Championship standings and dropped to second place, with the point percentage dropping to 58.33%. As the Border Gavaskar series approaches, Australia now holds the top spot with a point percentage of 62.5%. Following India's slip-ups against Kiwis, Australia need to win 5 of their last 7 matches and they'll go to Lord's for a chance to defend their title. New Zealand meanwhile regained the 4th spot they lost to South Africa after the Proteas whitewashed Bangladesh earlier this week. Their point percentage is 54.55%. New Zealand need victory in all 3 of their tests at home to England, but still that would not assure them of top 2 place, but it would give them a very good chance. South Africa require 4 wins from 4 to be completely sure of a berth in the final. 3 wins and a draw would give them a strong chance. For Sri Lanka, they need to win all 4 of their remaining matches in the cycle to be sure for the final spot, but 3 wins and a defeat might still be enough depending on results elsewhere. As of now, India will be eyeing to perform well against Australia on their home soil in the prestigious Border Gavaskar Trophy to confirm their place in WTC 2023-2025 final. The BGT series will be a 5-match series and India can afford to lose only 1 game in it. The Border Gavaskar series will begin on November 22nd with the first test at Perth. Over the years, India has regained an upper hand over Australia in the series. India has won its previous 4 series against Australia in a row, including 2 wins in Australia in the 2018-19 and 2020-21 seasons. This has made India a much more successful side in the series, with India winning the BGT 10 times and Australia winning it 5 times. Now, it will be interesting to see which 2 teams will win the race for WTC final spots. Sports Desk, DD India.
Now, Indian wicketkeeper batter Wriddhiman Saha has announced his retirement from all forms of cricket. The Bengal-born cricketer will retire after the ongoing season of the Ranji Trophy. The wicketkeeper batter played for India in 40 tests as well as 9 ODIs since making his international debut in the year 2010. He also played 170 matches in the Indian Premier League for franchises like Kolkata Knight Riders, Punjab Kings, Sunrisers Hyderabad and Gujarat Titans. Wriddhiman Saha became India's first choice wicketkeeper following MS Dhoni's test retirement in 2014 and last played for India in December 2021. Saha is currently preparing for Bengal's 4th round fixture against Karnataka in Bengaluru. In tennis, Germany's Alexander Zverev won the Paris Masters by defeating home favourite Hugo Humbert by 6-2 and 6-2. It was a dominant display by the new world number 2 in the final. The 27-year-old has now clinched 7 ATP 1000 level titles over the course of his career. It was a happy return to Paris for Zverev after he lost the French Open final to Carlos Alcaraz in June this year. 4 years ago, he lost the Paris Masters Championship match to Daniel Medvedev. The German will next play the ATP finals in Turin from the 10th till the 17th of November, where he will seek to emulate his past successes in 2018 and 2021. Those were the top updates of the hour. Back to you, Tanvi.
Thank you very much, Deepika. And the 9th edition of Artex, Africa's premier international art fair, took place in Lagos, Nigeria. This year's event welcomed several artists and exhibitors from all of Africa and the diaspora, showcasing a diverse range of contemporary artworks. The annual fair attracted hundreds of artists and many onlookers. So that's it for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.